Un, deux, trois, hey, Dolly boy, you really make me wanna vomit.
Your first local show experience. It could have been in Chicago.
What was my first show
Well,
ever?
what made you want to play local music? Like, so here's mine. So I remember when I was fucking 13, I think. There was this guy walking around the neighborhood down by Davis's house, and for those of you who don't know Davis, just a longtime friend, used to hang out at his house all the time. This guy was going door to door, and we were kind of like, 13, so you're finding your musical preferences and tastes and all that. Guy going door to door. I remember he was really cool because he had tattoos. Because, cool guys back then had tattoos.
Only cool guys
now,
have tattoos.
now only idiots have tattoos. But yeah, he was going door to door and basically asking all the neighbors permission. Like, hey, we're going to be playing this show in this garage. Don't call the cops on us. And I remember thinking that was so fucking cool. So we ran down the block to track this guy down. And we did. We found out it was going to be a kegger. So at 13, of course,
You're going to be there.
we were going to be there. $5 for the cup. Cup was refillable. It was an awesome night. But we saw bands like Dead Face Down, I think was the name of the band. They were like a death metal band.
And this is in Spokane?
It was in a garage down the street from Davis's house. It was fucking awesome. It was like a big garage. We saw Dead Face Down. We saw, I can't remember their name, but it was the band that is Concrete Grip now.
Okay.
Back when they were still in fucking high school, I think.
Are you certain this wasn't Rob's show? Rob's not much older than us, but Rob is like mid to late 30s. And Rob used to put shows together like crazy from when he was a kid. He was putting on shows in garages.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I remember it being a fucking blast because we just got shit-faced drunk and we listened to metal music, and I thought it was so cool because the guys on stage had like the best stage personas, I guess, and they were sitting there smoking weed out of bongs, and like I thought it was the coolest thing. So that's what kind of like just sort of that whole atmosphere was the thing that made me initially want to play music live.
Like, yeah, I want to be a stoner in a garage and
I
waste my life
I just
away.
thought it was awesome. Like the kids in the neighborhood were all coming around, and like it wasn't just
It
kids.
is awesome.
There was like
It's
100 people there in a fucking garage.
It's a community, and I think that is a huge thing that draws a lot of people into a scene. And it doesn't have I have a punk rock background. You're more of a metal guy, but it doesn't matter what genre it is. I think that if it's a fucking jazz club, in Louisiana, it's not necessarily the music that draws people in as opposed to it's a family of people that all have the same interests and are passionate about the same thing.
Right.
And it's important to find those people, that has molded both of us into the people that we become, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
Right? But, yeah, so that was your very first,
Well, that
rock
was
and roll show?
That was my first rock and roll show, but that was like the thing that made me realize that I wanted to play music live, because like at that point I had never played guitar, I had never done anything, and I actually wanted to be a vocalist back then. Like I really wanted.
I had the same.
I know you did, which is funny.
That's why you asked this question.
I don't think I've ever told you that story. But yeah, I wanted to be a vocalist, and like we got a couple guys together and we played we tried writing really shitty songs, and like we covered Blur,
Nice.
song number 2.
Yeah.
Because it was easy and it was fun.
It's a fun song.
Like, what pushed you towards it? Like, what was your first experience that you can think of?
I don't know. I have I could tackle this in so many different ways, and I have so many different stories, but
First punk rock show that made you fall in love with punk rock live?
I saw the Misfits when I was in
Graves
8th
Misfits,
grade.
right?
Yeah, Michael Graves years.
I was going to say, because you're not like 60.
Oh shit, no, it wasn't even Michael Graves. It was just the Jerry Only, Robo on drums, and Doyle. So it was like the original 3. Doyle's not an original, by the way. He takes credit for being an original, but
I know that story.
it was those 3. It was like the fucking Misfits, and it was in Chicago. And my brother took me, and I was in 8th grade, and I purposely skipped out. There was this huge project that we had to do in 8th grade for like a what fuck class was that? It was like a political class, and it was really important. You like spend an entire quarter of school like doing this project,
For me, it was econ. I had to do
Econ?
stocks.
right? Fuck. School's horrible.
School is
Drop
great.
out if, if you're no finish school. But anyhow, my brother's like, hey, the Misfits are fucking playing. I'm starting at the wrong spot, so we got to go back. Okay, so this is gonna take way too long, and I apologize.
No, don't
to
don't
everybody.
apologize to anybody. If
Okay.
anything, we'll just fucking whatever.
Okay,
I'm interested in the story. This was what I was talking about. Like
I'm gonna condense things. There's some embarrassing things that happened in
that involve accidental anal.
no,
Okay,
it's never happened. Never had that happen. I mean,
it's always
okay.
It's always on purpose.
Yes. So I was 8 years old. My brother was taking guitar lessons at Paradise Guitars in Beloit, Wisconsin, the town I grew up in. And I was like, that's really cool. And he would come home and he'd play like extreme songs and Poison songs and like
More than words.
yes. And I
Yeah.
would sing along. He learned how to play like Kansas's Dust in the Wind, and I remember like being a little kid and laying on his bed and like singing Dust in the Wind while he played guitar, and I was like, this is the coolest fucking thing ever. Like, I want to sing in a band. I don't know what kind of band, because it was just like my first few tapes were like Vanilla Ice and Poison, and they were his tapes, and
Yeah.
so I'm way too young for that to be my shit, but I love it.
Not way too young. You're a child of the '80s.
Right. Okay. So, I told my brother, I was like, I think it'd be cool if I, were to sing or something, and I want to be the front man in a rock and roll band. And he probably doesn't remember saying this, but I remember it vividly. He's like, you're too fat to be a front man for a rock and roll band, and nobody's gonna want to come and watch you dance around on stage and make an idiot of yourself. And so I was like, okay, that's not a quote, but it was along those lines.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well then I'm not going to do that. And the next month or something, my parents took me to a Kenny G concert. And it was at the Metro Center in Rockford, Illinois. And I remember going and being absolutely blown away by his rhythm section. And that sounds really ridiculous that my first professional touring band I ever saw was Kenny G, and I liked it.
That's not ridiculous. It's kind of funny, but it's not ridiculous.
So I was like, holy shit, that drummer, this big fat guy like me, probably smaller than I am now, but this big fat drummer. And I remember my mom being like, that guy moves so well for being so big. And I was like, yeah, he does. That's awesome. He's a fucking rad drummer. And so I went home and thought about it, and my parents came to me eventually, and they're like, do you want to play guitar like your brother? And I was like, no, I think I want to play drums like that guy in Kenny G. that plays with Kenny G. And they're like, okay. So they went out and they fucking fronted me $800 to buy my first drum kit, which I still have.
It's over there, right?
No, it's the fancy fucking one. But in our storage room down here, I have my original drum set that my dad bought for me when I was a kid. And I had to mow lawns and stuff and pay them back eventually. But I had my first drum set, started drum lessons, and the rest is history. But I remember that Misfits show, 8th grade, and my brother was into punk rock, and went to a record store, and I saw the Crimson Ghost for the very first time, and I was like, what the fuck is that? And Sean's like, you didn't know who the Misfits were? No one ever told you? And so he bought me the CD, I listened to it, and then a month later takes me to see the Misfits lineup. And it's Jerry Only, Doyle, and Robo on drums. It's without Danzig, that's the closest fucking thing you can get to the original lineup.
So who was singing?
Jerry was trying to sing.
Okay.
Yeah, but come to think of it, they just did those reunion shows where the original Misfits got back together, and Steph and I saw them in Chicago.
Yeah, the whole lineup, right?
Yeah, and then they just did one in Vegas and LA. And it's Dave Lombardo on drums, then the three big ones, Doyle and Jerry and Danzig singing, and then they have some fucker from some shitty Slipknot fucking goth punk shit that I hate. Sorry. I told you I wasn't going to censor myself. You love Slipknot. I apologize that people enjoy that shit. But I don't know who the fuck he is. And if he sees it, I'm sorry, but like I saw closer to the real Misfits lineup. To me, was like we're just missing Danzig, you know, because you had fucking Robo on drums and I was a drummer, and it was super cool. Robo was in Black Flag and fucking the Misfits and a whole bunch of early punk rock bands, and so it was rad. But that day, I remember skipping out on school the next day. Because I was so fucking dead tired. But downtown Chicago at the House of Blues, the original Misfits, and it just sitting there like, holy shit, I'm a drummer in a punk rock band in 8th grade, but like this is going to be what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. That was the point where I was like, this is it. I'm going to fucking do it. And I've wasted the rest of my life trying to get to that point. Yeah.
Well, you're only kind of a piece of shit. Just like
right, yeah.
I'm only kind of a piece of shit.
Okay.
Who is the bigger piece of shit? That's what I want to know.
I'm the bigger piece of shit.
What makes you the bigger piece of shit? Because you went to college?
No, it just makes me a stupid piece of shit. High school's important, like you were saying. Yes, do that. College?
I graduated high school. My
Maybe.
parents didn't think I was going to.
Really?
Yeah.